get yourself something nice to drink, make yourself comfy and cozy, and get ready for Papa Bird Tales. This is going to be sort of a video essay, mostly freestyle talk about the things that I'm interested in. And I'd like to start with the fantasy series that I'm super passionate about, and that is The Witcher. In this video I want to talk about the Netflix adaptation of my beloved books, and I'll concentrate mostly on negatives because I didn't like that show, so there's a spoiler for you. I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I'll list the things that I didn't like, and I'll try to explain them as best I can. So my history with the franchise goes way back. I was 13 the first time I've read the books. That was 19 years ago. I'm 32 right now, so I've got some credibility when it comes to being a fan of The Witcher. I've read the books in secret. I had to hide from my mum because she's also read them, and she did not allow me to give them a try. She said that these books are way too mature for me, that I have to wait some time and then I can read them. And I've actually asked her brother if he could lend me the books, and he did because he's a cool uncle. And I've read the first collection of short stories, The Last Wish, and I didn't understand it, not entirely, but I knew from the first time I've read it that I love it. I've immediately gravitated towards Geralt. He is kind of a character that I really like, that I gravitate towards. He reminds me of Mad Max, of the man with no name, the Yojimbo. Of course, back then I had no idea who all these characters are. Geralt was in fact the first of the type that I've came across in any sort of media, but I've instantly loved it. I remember that I've actually learned a lot of new words from reading the book. It's written in a fairly complex language, and so I had to actually use a dictionary in order to fully appreciate the sentences that Andrzej Sapkowski was building. And even though I still had some problems with it, but that being said, I've thoroughly enjoyed the books, the short stories. Till this day, I think that they are the best short story collection that I've ever read. So back then, when I was 13, I've had some grasp on what fantasy literature is. I've read The Hobbit, I've read the Lord of the Rings, I've enjoyed Terry Pratchett's Discworld very much. As soon as I've picked up Witcher, everything changed. It was so different from all the other books that I've come across and I've read. It was just, I didn't know what it was at first, but I knew I've came across something really, really special. And so now, 19 years after the initial read, I can sort of pinpoint what makes it so special to me. For once, it's the characters. The characters are amazing. It blows my mind that Andrzej Sapkowski writes his characters, even the lesser ones, in a way that you can actually make a full story out of them. There is an episode with an Applegate, I think the character's name is. He's a courier, and he just cross paths with Yennefer and Ciri in one point of the story. And he's written in such a complex way, in such an interesting way, that you can make up a whole story about him. But he's just an episodic character. And to me, that is a testament of the craft that Andrzej Sapkowski has, of how amazing of a writer he is, like how well he understands psychology in order to be able to write such compelling characters. Geralt, Ciri, Yennefer, Jaskier, they are all very complex, very believable characters. They are written in a way that they have flaws, but they also have redeeming qualities. They feel like people. They don't necessarily feel like characters from a book. To me, they feel like real people, like the relationship that they have. It almost reads like an account of real events. I've never seen anything like that done in a book. What strikes me about his characters also is his female characters. Back in the 1980s in Poland, he has written strong, independent female characters like no other. I've never seen a character that can compare to Yennefer. or Mother Neneke, or even Triss Merigold, or Ciri for that matter. She's made one of the main characters in a fantasy books a teenage orphan lesbian in the 80s and early 90s in Poland. That blows my mind when I think about it. How brave and how progressive he was, in those times. It's just phenomenal. And I've actually read in one book, I have no idea if it's available on the English market, and I don't remember the name right now, but the whole book is an interview with Andrzej Sapkowski. And in that book, he says that what allowed him to create these, incredible female characters are actually women from his own life, from his own experiences, like his mom, his grandma, his aunts. He said that women in Poland had to be strong and independent because most of the men either died during the war or were gone fighting. And so these women were responsible for keeping up the households. And he took inspiration from that, which is really interesting to me. What also strikes me as super interesting in The Witcher is the world itself. It's super compelling. It feels authentic. The wars that are fought between Nilfgaard and the Northern Realms. This is not a clash of good and evil like in The Lord of the Rings, that you have clear picture of who's good and who's evil, even based on the appearances of these two factions. Here, both the aggressor and the victim of the aggression, there are some redeeming stuff about the Nilfgaard, and there is also an argument to be made that to some extent their expansion can be justified. And also in the Northern Realms, who are the victim of the aggression, the kings, they are petty. They squabble, they quarrel and they fight with each other. They can't find a common ground. It feels real. Also, the war is not fought because of some ancient artifact and that will allow the emperor to rule over the whole world. No, the war is fought for political, economical reasons. There is money involved, there is land involved, agriculture is involved. It's super neat to me, it's super nice. And also what is interesting to me is Nilfgaard sees itself as a liberator in a way. Because let's take a look at the sorcerers, the mages problem in the Northern Realms and in Nilfgaardian Empire. In Nilfgaard, the mages are subdued by the government and by the elites. The mages are there to serve some purpose, and that is it. They don't look nice. They are not allowed any power whatsoever. They are there to serve the purpose, and they are summoned when they are needed. They do their job, and this is it. In Northern Realms, the mages are at some point they are almost even, and at some points they are above the kings themselves. The mages have superpower. They are super influential in Northern Realms. And Nilfgaardian Empire sees that as a threat, because I see mages in the Witcher universe almost like the weapon, like nuclear warheads that are so dangerous, and you have to be really careful with how you handle them and what you do with them. A balance of the world is at stake here, because mages, they have such immense powers, and if they will combine it, this is it. They can overthrow all the governments and they can decide to rule themselves. And so it's really interesting to think about it, because even though the Nilfgaard is, they are portrayed as the evil faction here, and their motivations are debatable, but you can make a point for them. You can make an argument that they are somewhat in the right, and you can make an argument against the Northern Realms. They are not really capable of dealing with the internal affairs of their own kingdoms, so they need some external help, and there you go, there's Nilfgaard for you. And speaking of the world itself, the sole idea of the witches and who they are, it's really something unique in a fantasy for me, because witches are not errant knights. They are not on a mission, on a sacred mission, to save the world, to purify the land and slay all the evil creatures that are dangerous. No, they are trained professionals. The sole purpose of their existence is to eradicate monsters, but in exchange for money. They are professional, they are efficient, and it really shows the background of Sapkowski, who was a trader before he became a full-time writer. He understands the importance of economy and how it works. What I find interesting is that the witches, you can't really evoke their consciousness when you try to convince them to do some job. You have to pay them, and they haggle with you. They understand the inflation. And so making the main character of the book is sort of a despicable, dirty, a person of a mysterious cast that, you know, people don't trust, but they sort of need them around. It's really interesting that, you know, making your character an outcast. It also plays into the main message of the whole saga, which is fighting with prejudice, being the sexism or racism or even elitism. Reading Sapkowski, you can clearly see that he is liberal in his worldview. In the political climate that he was writing these stories, it's really interesting as well. So when Netflix announced that they are going to make a high-budget TV series based on these books, I was like blown away. I couldn't wait. I was super excited for this TV show. There was a lot of hate and a lot of anxiety online. People were, you know, saying that there's no way this show is going to be good. Other people were similar to myself. They were, you know, really excited. And then the show came out in December 2019. And when I watched it with my wife, at first I really wanted to like it. But the more episodes I've seen, I couldn't believe what was unfolding in front of my eyes. I know the story very well. I've read the books, I think, around 7 times already. I read them every 2 years or so. So even though I know the story so well, I had problems with following the story that they wanted to depict in the show. And so I think that people who came into this show not knowing the books, that they may have some real issues, you know, trying to figure out what the hell was going on the screen. I want to make some sort of a list of the things that I didn't like, and these will include mostly characters, because I think there are 2 main problems with the show. The first one is that Netflix did not understand the characters and what made them work in the books, and the second one being they wanted to have the main trio on the screen right away. Yen, Ciri and Geralt, and that is a huge problem. I think they've rushed it. They should have kept the short stories format. For now, let me say a few words about the characters and what I don't like about them. So both me and most of the people on the internet agree that Henry Cavill was one of the redeeming qualities of the show. His portrayal of Geralt was admirable, and his passion for the source material and the whole lore of The Witcher is something to be, you know, praised. And I really enjoy interviews with him where he talks about the Witcher, and, you know, you can see that he was really working with the dream material for him. But that being said, he is not the Geralt I've seen in my imagination when I was reading the book. It sounds weird, but Henry Cavill is too handsome to play Geralt. Henry Cavill is, you know, he's an eye candy, you know, he's this buff dude with beautiful face. And I've always pictured Geralt as being sort of interesting to look at, but couldn't necessarily describe him as being handsome. I've depicted him as being, you know, almost gaunt, with wiry muscles, lean person, because he had no private gym, you know, no private instructor. His work was his gym. Being a witcher kept him fit. But also he was a nomad. He lived on the road most of the time. He was sleeping rough. He was eating whatever was available. Sometimes probably he went hungry for days. Also, because of the rushed nature of the show, you really had little time to warm up to Geralt. They've decided to make the first episode the Lesser Evil short story, which is an awesome story, but they rushed through it. And so in the books, you've already, if you read the short story chronologically, you've already had a lot of time to warm up to Geralt. You've known him from, you know, previous stories, and you understand him a little bit. You know that he is a moral person. When he's faced with the decision to either help Stregobor the wizard or Renfri and her crew, and the consequences of making either choice, you can feel his hesitation and you can feel the awfulness of the choice that he eventually makes. You feel so bad for him when he slaughters all those people, and then when people of Blaviken who had no idea what was going on, why all of a sudden this white-haired guy kills all these people in the market, you can feel the sadness, the spur of Geralt when he's being ostracized by citizens of Blaviken that have no idea that he may have just saved their lives. And in the show, he spends some time with Renfri. He knows her backstory. He talks with Stregobor, who tells him that, she may be a monster, but we have no idea. There is no way to check it other than the post-mortem. So there's that. And he goes to the city and he murders everybody. And if you don't know the Geralt from the books, you're just like, what the fuck just happened? Why is he killing everybody? Despite Henry being really good in the role, I think, as an actor, it was really hard to make Geralt likable with what he got. They basically brushed through most of the stories that were actually setting up him as a character in the books, and they just sprinkled them across the TV show in a way like, here you go, that's the stories, hope you are satisfied. But there was no character building in that, at least I couldn't find it. Moving on with the characters I really didn't like in the show is Jaskier. Joey Beatty, to me he felt more like a donkey from the Shrek than Jaskier as of books. The decision to make his songs like that was really weird to me. I didn't enjoy any of his songs, and I feel that Netflix wanted to make him a comic relief. That he is to some extent in the books, but he is also Geralt's best friend in the whole world. And despite the fact that Jaskier is not even an adequate fighter, he is not afraid to go into the thick of it for his friend. They suffer together, they have good times together. Their friendship is something really special in the books. He's like this anchor that holds Geralt in one place for a long time at least. He is giving Geralt, some reality checks, because Geralt is whining a lot, he is complaining, he is grumpy, I think Geralt suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder and depression, and Jaskier is there to alleviate that pain. He is not funny for the sake of being funny. He found a way to both go through the life, because he is hedonistic and he enjoys life as it is, but he also uses that way and that part of himself to help his friend to cope with the life that Geralt has. And that's really beautiful, and there are some, touching, beautiful moments between Geralt and Jaskier. And I couldn't find any in the show. In the show they focused on, Jaskier being the funny guy. And there was even one point where Geralt punches him in the gut. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Why did he do that? Geralt, he had his emotions most of the time in check. He wouldn't, punch a bard that can't fight back. It was really ridiculous to me. And as a bonus nitpick, I would really love to see Jaskier as a blonde. He was a blonde in the books after all, and I don't believe we've ever had a blonde Jaskier. Moving on, Ciri. Ciri is too old in the show. I know that they've made this decision due to some legal or other show business related reasons, but it doesn't make any sense to me in story-wise. What made Ciri's and Geralt's relationship so special was the fact that they met for the first time when she was a child. Geralt saved her in Brokilon, and that is also cut from the show for some reason. Both we, as the readers, and Geralt meet Ciri as this, snarky puppy, cute but also stubborn little girl with running nose, and she's so cute and adorable. They have this journey through the very dangerous forest, and Geralt grows attached to her, and she actually brings something up in Geralt that he had no idea he would ever experience, and that is paternal instinct. The relationship between her and Geralt is gradually building up. We meet her as a child, then she goes, and becomes a teenager, and she becomes a little bit unruly. And then the whole thing goes to shit, and as a young adult, she gets involved in some really rough situations with some really rough people. Her and Geralt are growing more and more apart. And it's heartbreaking because at first you feel the love between them. You feel the attachment and the trust, and all of that is gradually being washed away by the circumstances that both of them find themselves in. The relation between her and Geralt is really heartbreaking and really special, on top of the fact that the destiny is playing a huge part and all that. And that is gone from the show. And I can't understand that. Like in the show ends with intended to be beautiful scene when Geralt and Ciri, they see each other, and they run and then they embrace. But in the show, this is the first time that they see each other. In the books, when Geralt finally meets with Ciri, it really is heartbreaking. When Geralt is being brought half dead on a wagon to a household that Ciri is actually at, and they see each other and they embrace, you really feel the emotions because you've had some time to learn about these characters, to understand the relationship. Here, it's absent. So I don't really understand both why they've made Ciri a young adult from the get-go and why omitted so many character building things for her, like the Brokilon scene with Geralt. Lesser things, but that also bugged me. The King Foltest. I mean, I'll focus solely on his appearance because that's all that we got in the show, but I really enjoyed him in the books. He was a cool character, but we are introduced to him as an incestuous, sort of morally ambiguous guy, though he is described as being handsome, too handsome, and in the show, he is far from that. But that's all I got to say about him, really. Next one in line is Ike of Danel, the errant knight that is in the episode with the golden dragon. Like, what's wrong with him? He was on a sacred mission from the gods. So he basically moved from one kill to another because that's what gods bestowed upon him. But at no point I've seen him, impaling the creature's head on the spike and then ostentatiously eating its meat that he cooked over a fire. Like, I don't know, dude, you've got some issues, and I really don't understand why they made his character such a weirdo. And Nilfgaardians. There's been a lot said about their armors that are awful, but they reminded me of this weird, I don't remember the name, the creatures that the Power Rangers fought with. The guys who moved in a funny way and, they were sent by Rita and the other people who lived on the moon base. Like, Nilfgaardians, they've got army figured out in the books. They knew tactics, they had awesome generals and fire masters and the formations. Nilfgaardians, they were based on the Holy Roman Empire in Nazi Germany. When you think about Nazi Germany and Holy Roman Empire, you see formations, you see people following the lines, structured, well-groomed soldiers. And here, we've got a bunch of dudes in the papier-mâché armors, waving the sword and maces around, screaming like wildlings, charging into a battle with no regard for their own safety, no formations whatsoever. I don't know. I hope they will fix it. Also, speaking of Nilfgaard, what the fuck is up with their magic? Is this some kind of weird, twisted necromancy? Why do they have to kill in order to cast spells? Like, what is that? And why is not the same applicable to the Northern Realms mages? We never know. Maybe that's the eels from the Arethusa, the school of witchcraft, which I have no idea what that was either. And two last nitpicks when it comes to characters, but huge ones to me. First of all, Cahir. Cahir was so botched in this show, I have no words for it almost. Cahir is one of my favorite characters in the books, and here they've done something terrible to him. He is a psycho, he's a lunatic. He is like a serial killer. He has the vibe of Ted Bundy to him, and I really don't understand why. In the books, he was such a complex character. He failed the first mission that was bestowed upon him from the Emperor Emir because He fell in love with Siri from the first sight. That's a lame excuse, but I'll give it a pass because it's described in a beautiful way. He almost was executed for that by the Nilfgaardian justice system. And then he was semi-pardoned and given another chance to do his job, and he fucked it up again. And so he was like torn between his sense of duty and also fear for his own life from the hands of Emir, and, you know, between love for Ciri. He was not wanted in the Empire. He was not wanted in Geralt's company, and he was like, okay, so I have no idea where I belong, but I'm gonna stick with what feels right, which is looking for Ciri, to reunite with her. So I have no idea what the show is going to do with him. How is his transformation going to occur? I have no idea. But I'm not hopeful. And the last one, and a huge one to me, is Calanthe. Oh my god. Like, Calanthe is described as this stoic, beautiful, imposing female figure. You can imagine that when Sapkowski was describing Calanthe, he had some sort of a goddess in mind. And in the show, we are introduced to the beautiful Queen of Sintra that barges into the feast in bloody armor. She picks up a goblet of whatever and chugs it, throws it on the ground, and laughs coarsely. Like a drunkard, I don't know. What was missing from that scene was a fucking loud burp and fart. It was horrible. I couldn't believe it. That's not how you write a strong female character, my people. That's how you write a fucking weirdo. Like, she seems unstable emotionally. The whole episode with Calanthe and Pavetta and Duni is awful. It's horrible. The story in the books, it reads like something that, you know, Quentin Tarantino would write. It's packed with tension and uncertainty. Like, you have no idea what will go down, but you know something they will eventually. And in here, it's just like meh. Yeah, Calanthe left a bad taste in my mouth, and I still can't get over it. Right, and what I've already said, but what I think is really important to stress, is that they rushed the show. What I think would save it, because from the cinematic point of view, it wasn't that bad. What I think they should have done is focus on conveying short stories to the screen. If they would stick to the format that one episode equals one short story, that would work. Because that way you have time to grow attached to the character. You've got time to know their motivations and who they are. The books are constructed in a way that you start to finding out things about Geralt. And then you are introduced to Jaskier. And then there's Yennefer. And then Ciri, and so on and so on. And by the time you reach the novels, you've read 2 tomes of short stories focused on trying to make you care for these characters. So when you read the first book of the saga, you already have a very good idea of who these people are. But the show was so fixated on having Yennefer, Ciri and Geralt on the screen from the moment that the show starts. That's what ruined it. Like I've already said, they've sprinkled the short stories here and there in the show, but for instance the Dol Blathana episode. This is such a beautiful short story, and in the show it's like 5 minutes and it's concluded. This is such a waste in my opinion, and such a weird decision. I really don't understand why they did it. I've seen some interviews and where they are trying to make some excuses that it was vital because trio of the characters, you know, they are the heart of the stories and the soul, and it's actually Ciri's and Yennefer's story. It's like, yeah, sure, but it takes time to care for characters. You can't just throw them out there, and because the decision that they've made is so weird to me, because at one hand, they want to introduce new people to the Witcher universe, but also the way they structure it and the way that they go about it makes you feel that you have to have some knowledge about the characters and the world, you know, appreciate what they are trying to do. I don't understand it. I'm thinking about it, you know, I was thinking about it a lot, and I'm still thinking about it while I'm forming these sentences, and I still can't make any sense out of what Netflix was thinking. Yeah, and I'm also really disappointed because Tomasz Bagiński and Andrzej Sapkowski were both involved in the production. Sapkowski to a lesser extent, but I think he visited, you know, the production. I was hoping that they would actually bring something to the show, because I know for a fact that Bagiński is a huge fan of the books, and so I don't know, something must have happened in the writers' room or the production broom or whatever it is called. I have no idea how the how showrunning works, but yeah, decisions were made that, in my opinion, killed the show. So I was really hopeful for the season 1. Couldn't wait for it, and then I'm so disappointed by it. I think I will watch season 2, but like I'll go about it in a very pessimistic way. Like I'll assume that it's going to be bad, and if it's going to be good, I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I don't think so. Yeah, I think I've said everything that I wanted to say, at least for the moment, about the Netflix Witch season 1. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that it made some sense. If you have anything to add or ask me about, feel free to add a comment. If you like the video, please give it a like. I want to make videos like this one on a somewhat regular basis. I've already had some plans and projects for a Mad Max video. I'm a huge Mad Max fan, and I've recently took up the 2015 game for the first time, and I really enjoy it, and I think that this iteration of Mad Max is the best one out there. So I want to make a video about that. I have been also meditating recently on what makes Star Wars so culturally significant. I want to explore that topic, but I haven't wrapped my mind around it yet. I'll hope to stay on YouTube for a while, making these videos for you and for myself. This has been sort of a therapeutic experience for myself. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.